Welcome to Let's Get Curious, the podcast for women and mothers seeking connection, support, and inspiration. We are friends, mothers, and therapists. Lori, a physical therapist, and Dorothy, a speech and language therapist. Together, we share our personal stories, including IVF, birth experiences, and navigating children's learning difficulties. Through our discussions, we uncover profound lessons for personal growth. Join us on this journey of curiosity, compassion, and empowerment. Welcome to Let's Get Curious. Hello, everyone. Today, Dorothy and I are joined by Kim Vopni and Natalie Headdings. And Kim is known as the Vagina Coach on Instagram, and she is known for her Buff Muff Method, while it's all about helping women with pelvic floor issues such as incontinence and organ prolapse. Natalie Headdings, she is a doula and a core confidence specialist and master trainer, and is the co-creator with Kim on the Buff Muff Practitioner certification, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So Kim, I would love for you to start off with us and give us a little bit of a backstory of how you became the Vagina Coach and what it has all morphed into today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I always joke that it's not a job title that's very common when you think about what do I want to be when I grow up. You don't think necessarily about Vagina Coach, but
No.
So it sort of was accidentally on purpose. It really stemmed from seeing a childbirth video, and that planted a seed that I never wanted to have babies. And I sort of grew up with this fear, but also fascination about pregnancy and birth. I witnessed my mom had chronic back pain. She had surgery for incontinence. She stopped exercising. She had a tummy that wouldn't flatten. So all these things that I looked at, I liked running, I liked exercise, I liked all these things. And I thought pregnancy and birth did a bit of a number on the body, and I wasn't interested in that. So that was, just not a chapter I was going to enter into. However, then of course you grow up and I met my husband, and then we decided we did want to start a family, and I witnessed my sister-in-law give birth. And that was that was the first normal physiological birth that I had ever seen, and different from that childbirth video that I had seen or what I had seen in the media. And then the following year, so I decided I wanted to start a family. And the following year, I'm pregnant. My midwives recommend a biofeedback device to me called the EPI-NO. And EPI-NO stands for no episiotomy. It's a product from Germany, and it was designed by a doctor who witnessed women in Africa using gourds of increasing size to prepare their pelvic floor for birth. So we thought, well, that's a great idea, but that's not going to fly kind of in the Western world. So he worked to create a medical device called the EPI-NO. And my midwives recommended it to me. I purchased one, had a great experience, didn't tear. And then I thought, well, why doesn't everybody use one of these? And the intention of it is it's a biofeedback device. So you can learn how to contract and relax your muscles. It helps do perineal massage and learn how to yield to the discomfort that you feel in birth. So this made sense to me. And being a personal trainer, I looked at the pelvic floor like this group of muscles that we really should be training, just like the rest of our body. So I contacted the company and I said, hey, could I be a distributor in Canada? And I didn't think of it as a business. I thought I would just sell a few on the side to my friends. And that's kind of how it started. And then originally I was working primarily with pregnant women, obviously with the intention of helping them understand the pelvic floor before they even gave birth. So I created a program called Prepare to Push that was using the principles of fitness basically to help train for the demands of childbirth. And then I looked at, okay, well, we've done all this preparation, but now recovery is very overlooked. So I started a second business with two other women called Bellies Inc. And we wanted to take influence from around the other cultures around the world that actually honor the postpartum recovery period. We don't do a great job of that here in North America. So we created a wrap called the ab wrap, and we coupled it with restorative exercise, juggled those two businesses very much in the prenatal postpartum world. And then as I started to go through my own perimenopause journey, it was like, oh, there's this whole other chapter now that we need to consider. And then I knew I needed a bit of a brand change. So I think it's about 8 years ago now, I was speaking to a group of women entrepreneurs who we were all mompreneurs. We were all moms who had some sort of a business, and this conference was 400 women, and all the coaches were some sort of a, business strategy or marketing coach or something to do with business. And so when I came up on stage, my talk was how optimizing your pelvic floor can make you a better mompreneur. And I joked, now you have a vagina coach for your business. And so that's where the term came, and it was sort of this light bulb moment. And I was like, okay, I'm going to step into this word that nobody likes to say, and it's part of the reason why there's this shame and suffering that is associated with the pelvic floor. And that's how I became the Vagina Coach.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's a very catchy name. I find all of your names very catchy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we have to have, I mean, it's a heavy topic. It's a taboo topic. We always hush and whisper about it. And while I embrace obviously a proper anatomical terminology, we also need to have a little bit of fun to kind of lighten that load, right? So
we absolutely do. We absolutely do. Well, and Dorothy and I say this all the time where, you, as you're preparing for baby and birth, you go into the hospital and they give you your birthing class and your lactation class. And I'm like, nowhere along any of it from start to finish do we talk about the pelvic floor. And just in general, I mean, sure, we know of that body part when we have to change our tampons, or if you have a urinary tract infection, unless you have a problem down there. Yep. But, when I work with women and I ask them, like, do you even know what the pelvic floor looks like? Of course, they have no clue. And then you start explaining the anatomy and everything to them, and their mind is just blown of all the things that happens down there. Yeah. So I wish this is something that we could change moving into the future for all future women and mothers to be, is from start to finish. We take care of them.
1,000%. Yeah. And we deserve the education much earlier in life. And, when we're teaching kids about the menstrual cycle and about their bodies and sex, we should be planting the seed about what the pelvic floor is. Because the term pelvic floor, we know vagina. That's right. Kind of, and many people think the vulva is the vagina or the whole thing is the vagina. But we're lacking in proper education. And as you say, it's not usually until later in life when we have some sort of a problem to fix that we start to learn more. And then we think, well, why didn't I learn this before? And why didn't anybody tell me this before?
Yeah, absolutely. And Nat, can you explain a little bit to us as well as how you got into this line of work, and then also how you ended up joining Kim?
Yeah, totally. Thank you for having me as well. It's fun to be on with everyone. I started out as a doula. It's like 11 years ago now, a doula and a Pilates instructor. And I saw a lot of my doula clients having difficult labors in the hospital. And I was just telling Dorothy before, like I had a client who pushed for hours and hours and then ended up with a section. Like I saw diastasis, I saw incontinence, I saw prolapse in these clients. And I started to learn through the Pilates studio, we can address these issues with exercise. And so my wheels started turning and I was like, oh, okay, how can I like combine these worlds, because they're not very combined at the moment. And I started Googling like fitness and doula work. And at the time, Kim was going by the fitness doula. And so she popped up. It was perfect. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to be exactly like Kim, essentially. And I emailed her. I was like, how do I become you when I grow up? And she responded. And I was like, wow, okay. She responded. And so I ended up going to her certification course like a couple years down the road from that. I think that was like in 2017, if I'm remembering correctly. And then at that course, it was Kim and Julie at the time, and they were saying, hey, we need some master trainers. We need people to teach this course. And I put my hand up like, hey, I want to do this. This is my new calling. I found it basically. And I switched my degree from nursing school to exercise physiology, pursued that path, and have kind of created a whole method. And now I teach the certification as well with Kim, and we co-created the new certification, which is awesome. And yeah, the rest is pretty much history. So
I love it. I love it. So for our listeners, Kim, who don't know about the Buff Muff Method, can you elaborate a bit on that? And then we could, of course, transition to what you guys are creating now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the first program I created was Prepare to Push, and that was really very pregnancy, birth focused. But I was applying the fitness principles to the pelvic floor because it is a group of muscles. The pelvic floor is a group of muscles, type 2, type 1 muscle fibers like we have in the rest of the body. And so really it will respond to very similar principles like we train the rest of the body. So I looked at birth and I said, okay, what are the most favorable birth positions? How can we train? How can we exercise in ways that will help us build strength and endurance and also suppleness and the ability, like how can people connect to even know what the pelvic floor is and learn how to relax? Because during birth, it's an elimination and we need to learn how to relax those muscles. And we can learn what exercise or what positions our pelvic floor responds most favorably. And so that was how it started. Then, as I mentioned, we created Belly's Inc., and now it was sort of more of a restorative practice. And we had some foundational exercises that were really designed to help the postpartum person get back to, like, right now it was sort of like, wait till 6 weeks, then you go get a check of your make sure your incision, if you've had one, or your episiotomy is healed. And like, and some don't even have an internal evaluation. They're like, yeah, you're good. You can go back to normal now. And there's a whole missed opportunity there of retraining the core system. So it's very focused on what we need. We need to build connection back with the breath. We need to build the glutes. We need to build the lateral hip stability, put in functional movement like squats. And then from there, we thought, well, these are kind of fundamental movement patterns that most people would benefit from. And that became the retraining philosophy for really any client we had, regardless of whether they'd given birth or not, regardless of whether, even if they did give birth, it was 20 years ago. So then it was sort of an evolution of, these can be a restoration for most people. And then it was like, okay, well, once we've done the restoration, how are we progressing that? We don't just do a core restoration and then we never have to think about the pelvic floor again. This is, I would say, kind of like brushing your teeth and flossing. The exercises we do are like the brushing and flossing, and seeing a pelvic floor PT once a year is your dentist. And so then we needed to be able to build in layers of progressive overload, another principle of fitness. And that's really what the Buff Muff Method is about. So we start with connecting with your breath, understanding the relationship of the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, understand why posture is important. And then we start to do a couple of key exercises and bring them into whole body movement that incorporates relaxation and activation with whole body movement, because most of us have heard of a Kegel exercise, and people feel like, okay, I should be doing them. And then they think they're doing them, but they never really do them correctly. We have evidence to show that most people do them incorrectly because they've never been taught. It's not their fault.
Exactly.
And Kegels are a static exercise. People think of doing them at a red light or when they're brushing their teeth, or, not moving. But most of the symptoms we face are when we are lifting weights or carrying a grocery bag or standing up from a chair. So we're missing that element of training the pelvic floor dynamically in functional movement patterns. So that's really what the Buff Muff Method started out as. And then it's really now expanded, and we have, how do we go to HIIT training? How do we heavy lift? How do we incorporate it into yoga? So it's really a way to give that foundational information about the pelvic floor and how it works, but then how we can bring it into our other workouts so that we don't have to have a pelvic floor workout. And like, I didn't want to add an additional something to everybody's to-do list, which is already really long. So it's really just a way to bring it all together so that we can age more powerfully, really. I mean, as I said, we started with this prenatal postpartum world, and now myself being postmenopause, having aging parents, this whole concept just is so much more important to me now, even more than it already has been, because it is a major factor for people being admitted to nursing homes. It's a major reason why people are falling. And then if they do fall, if they haven't already had incontinence, they will develop it. Like, it's just so, the pelvic floor is really the most important group of muscles in the whole body, in my opinion.
Yes. And I can feed off of that because I used to work in the geriatric population before I made my switch over into the pelvic floor world. And Kim and Nat, I cannot tell you how many little old ladies I would get up to go do their exercises with. We'd walking, standing balance, whatever it may be. And the minute that they stood up from their chair, they would pause and they'd say, "Hold on a minute, honey." And I was like, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm gushing." The literally would be their word, "I'm gushing." And of course they had the Depends, diapers and stuff on. And so we'd probably stand there for probably a good 10 seconds. And they're like, "Okay, we can go now." And so it is a very real thing. And I was at the gym just a couple months or so ago. And of course, with the whole perimenopause, all the great information that's out there, there's this conversation of lifting heavy. And so now there's these women that are going and just trying to like lift heavy right off the bat. And I got talking to one at the gym and she's like, well, I want to do this and I know it's good for me, but I'm also leaking. And so there we had a mini session in the gym and just explaining breath to her alone. She was amazed. She's like, oh my gosh, by you changing my posture and position and my breath, she goes, it's not happening right now. So this is very much a real thing. And with those individuals who do want to go out and lift heavy, I mean, yes, we need that, but you need the whole system working in your favor.
1,000%. Yeah. You need to have that, the foundation in place first. And I've thought that exact same thing. While I love the messaging, that pelvic floor dysfunction is a risk to our longevity. And it is, if you don't already suffer with it, now going to the gym and lifting heavy. Also, what does heavy mean? Like what's heavy to me could be light as a feather for Natalie, right? So
exactly.
That's another thing too, and so we need to have these strategies and this foundation in place before we load it. So yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think a lot of times too, I know when I'm working with women, you can see that there's like a level of frustration because they want like that quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And I warn them like from day one, I'm like, listen, this is boring, slow work. And especially because I'm like, if you can't understand the breath and redistributing pressure, I can't load you. Right? I mean, why would I add load to a system that can't handle it? And so we break it down. And of course, little by little, they start to see, improvements. But I always like to make that segue right from the very beginning. Like you need to be patient, with this work because you're also unwinding lots of, well, quote unquote, bad behaviors, bad postures, lack of awareness, throughout the years. Right. And that's fine with that work.
And there's also the lifestyle piece as well that is really important. And that's part of the whole Buff Muff philosophy is people come because they think there's going to be a magic set of exercises that's going to cure them. And yes, movement and exercise can absolutely play a role. But if you are dehydrated, if you are constipated, if you are chronically sitting in poor posture, if you're always going to the bathroom just in case, if you're pushing to pee, like all these things that, again, nobody's been taught. But if those are happening, I could give you all the exercise in the world and you really aren't going to be making the progress that you really need or think that you should be having. So it's a much bigger conversation than just a couple, like 3 sets of 10 Kegels every day.
Right. I know. I do the internal exam and sure, they might get somewhat of a contraction, but there's no relaxation in that Kegel. So when I explain it from like a simple opening and closing your arm, how you need both ends of that contraction and that relaxation of a muscle to get full function. They're just, blown away. And you could see like the eyes and just everything is working so hard to like relax, right? But there is a full connection to all of this.
Yeah, I think it also just like highlights the siloed aspect of medical, well, quote unquote, healthcare, disease care, right? Like we separate the body into parts so often that we're like tunnel vision on, okay, you need to contract and relax your pelvic floor, but we're not looking at like the holistic picture of how the body's working. And if you have all of these habits of, just in case voids, and I was going to add on, if you're wearing any conventional shoes, then that's another whole huge factor to your alignment and how you are moving throughout the day. And if you're just isolating one part of your body, you're not going to get the benefit of training your entire body as a whole person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Natalie, can you tell me more about conventional shoes?
What are yes, I can.
The whole episode.
Can you say it in 1 minute or less?
Probably. I will try my best.
Okay.
If we are wearing stiff, supported, heeled shoes that narrow at the toes, then basically that doesn't allow our foot to function as a foot. And our feet have 26 bones in each of them, 33 joints, and they're designed to function as joints should move. They should move and they should respond to ground reaction forces. And the toes should be able to splay. Your feet should be widest at the toes. And if your shoes disrupt that natural patterning, then there are unnatural forces that end up going up the chain. And so if you're rolling your ankle, if you have knee pain, if you have hip pain, low back pain, if you are leaking, then it probably comes down to your shoes. And if you are wearing, any kind of conventional shoe, like normal, quote unquote, normal shoes that are not barefoot, natural footwear, then you're disrupting your body's natural flow and function, especially during walking and running. So natural footwear is fixed to the foot, doesn't slip on or slip off. So no flip-flops or things like that. It has some ground feel, so you can feel the movement of the ground underneath you. It has flexibility, so you could like wring out your shoe essentially, and a wide toe box. So those are kind of like the main factors to look for in better for you shoes. Yeah. Was that
Perfect.
a minute?
Thank you.
Trying
Maybe
really
two, but it
hard.
was worth it.
Good job, Nat. Well, and
Thank
Nat
you.
and I also recorded a podcast on the foot pelvic floor connection, which will be coming out in August. So for more details about that with the connection of the foot and the pelvic floor. So if either of you can explain then for us what this evolution is of your program that the two of you are putting out, and what does that look like? Who does that open up to? I'd love to hear more.
You can go for it. So we started with the Bellies Inc. company, right? And having the restorative program, the WRAP, and it was primarily focused on postpartum women and recovering from birth. But then as Kim started to evolve her practice and thinking more about like perimenopause and the entire population, like everybody has a pelvis. Most people have a pelvis. If you have a pelvis, you have a pelvic floor, and this applies to you. And so we started to recognize like the push of heavy lifting in the general, fitness industry, the rise of CrossFit, the rise of higher intensity exercise, the move from like women only do cardio to women now are beasts and we're doing all of this work, right? And then we saw more pelvic floor dysfunction. And so we've decided to evolve the certification to match the demands of the fitness industry, essentially. And a lot of times we would have people come and take the certification and say like, okay, this is great for rehab, but then what do I do moving forward? What do I do with somebody who does want to lift 200 pounds and they do want to use a weight belt and they have a competition and they're peeing every time they do that? What do I do with them as a client? Or what do I do with somebody who is functional in all daily activities, but they leak only when they jump rope? And the traditional like rehab answer would be like, well, don't jump rope or slow it down.
Wrong.
Right? And we saw kind of a trend in like, there's the physical therapy world. Everybody's lying down doing clamshells for the rest of their life. And life doesn't happen lying down doing a leg lift. It happens up and jumping and like playing with your kids and hiking and running and all of that. And so we decided that we need to incorporate the newer research that's coming out, which is very exciting. I know I talked to you about like the running and the barefoot shoes and running and pelvic floor research. Like that is what is being done right now. And so we're incorporating all of that new research into the certification program. So it's primarily for any movement specialist, really. It opens it up to, any kind of movement modality, whether you're a Pilates instructor, a CrossFit coach, whether you're a physical therapist, acupuncturist. If you work with bodies, you can take it. All of the information is helpful, and it covers essentially pre-conception through post-menopause and holistic life training, including heavy lifting and crunching and planking and, the sit-ups, all of the things that were very restrictive in the past. So like 10 years ago, the core research, the pelvic floor research was like, don't do planks, don't do crunches, don't do sit-ups, just ignore them completely. But we need flexion in our daily lives to accomplish tasks. And if we ignore those, then we see the consequences in nursing homes later on down the road. And so we have decided to evolve and take the new research and it's been an epic journey. I feel like it's been like a growth. We've had to have a growth mindset with adopting new things, right? If you teach no planks and no crunches for a long time, you have to be open and change your mindset to think, okay, let's see how we can do them and how we can train trainers to help their clients achieve those movements without symptoms. So,
Yeah, the course was originally created in 2013, which is now 12 years ago. And as Natalie said at the time, there really was not a lot of research. We had a couple pieces of research. We were looking at diastasis. That's originally diastasis was kind of the motivation for us to create this course. And it was a lot of it was about the abdominal wall. And then the log rolls, no flexion, no crunch, no twist, no plank, as Natalie said, like it was very restrictive. And I was also at the time exploring a certification with Katie Bowman, who is about moving all the ways. And so I had this battle where I was like, it doesn't make sense that we can't crunch after we've had a baby. It doesn't make sense that we can't do all these things. And so my three business partners, Natalie wasn't in the picture at this point. The three of us, one was a pelvic PT and two of us were fitness professionals. And we would have, respectful battles in conversation about yes or no. Like it didn't make sense that we should be so restrictive. And it didn't feel good. And when you think about diversity, I felt creating more compensatory strategies. And then later on down, like many years later, there was now a little bit more research, but there was also a few more minds who had similar thinking who were now trying to challenge this suggestion that we shouldn't be able to do things. Anthony Lowe was a really big catalyst for that. And he kind of came out of nowhere. And at first people were like, who's this Anthony Lowe guy? But I credit him for really making a shift in the mindset for a lot of people. And I went to one of his courses, and then Julia, my business partner, I said to both of them, I said, you have to go. This is a business expense. You have to go to this course. And they both had their eyes open and they said, yep, I get it now. Like some of the movements that he was asking people to do that are fundamental movement patterns, pelvic PTs were on this course. They couldn't do them because they had stopped doing any sort of flexion, and they literally could hardly get themselves off of a floor other than doing a log roll. And they said, okay, this is not okay. And that was I don't know, probably maybe 9-10-ish years ago. I can't remember exactly when that was. Wow. So the course has definitely evolved along the way. And then again, when the whole perimenopause, menopause transition in our own lives started to come in, was like, we have to talk about this now too. Like this is a whole other chapter. We can't just say, do your Kegels in pregnancy, and that's all we really need to think about. So it's kind of a lifespan course, all with now very much that vision of how do we want to age. That is so meaningful for me right now. I was witnessing aging parents and all the things, really watching my mom originally was kind of part of my story, and not wanting to have what my parents are dealing with. My mom's still very active. She is dealing with an injury right now, but it's more my father who has been very sedentary, and you see the consequences of that. And it's just the difference between an active mom and a sedentary father is very, very, it's terrible. Actually, it's very sad to witness, and I want nothing to do with that. So I want other people to really be aware. Again, let's plant the seed. Don't wait until you have a balance problem. Don't wait until you have osteoporosis. Don't wait until you have incontinence. Let's do all of this work ahead of time, and it's going to help with all of those things.
Yes. Yes. 100%, Kim. Like I said, I worked in that line of work for the longest time. And to your point where like, you're not doing planks and you're not being able to get yourself into flexion to sit up and get out of bed. I mean, the whole, if you don't use it, you lose it, is a very true factor. And with the aging population, we wait until there's a problem, and there doesn't need to be. And I'm very passionate about that myself, of keeping everything going. But in terms of the coursework, how long is the course to get certified? Is it in person? Is it online? When is it coming out? Lots of questions I have.
It's funny. I've been thinking about this. When we originally did the course, it again, 2013, it was live. It was only live for several years. And I remember we had a business coach who said, you have to get this online. And we thought, oh, there's no way we could teach this online. There's no way. It has to be in person, it has to be hands-on. And we love hands-on. And yes, there's a richness about an in-person course and hands-on learning. There are people around the world who wanted to take it who couldn't come. So it is available online. And with the new content, I'd say it's somewhere between 20 and 30 hours of content. So usually, whether you're doing that all online or if you do in person, it's a weekend course, but you have about 4-ish hours of pre-course learning just to understand fundamentals of anatomy and physiology. And then after the weekend, there's an online exam and a case study that you would need to complete as well. There's little quizzes along the way, then a final exam, and then your case study. So some people take 2 weeks to do it. Some people take almost a year to do it. It's really, people can go at their own pace, especially when they're doing it online.
Sure. Okay, good to
And
know.
Kim, will you have a directory of, I'm not a movement specialist, I'm a speech therapist, so I don't fall into the category of taking the class. Will you have a directory where someone could maybe find trained practitioners in their area?
I
want to sign up right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That'll be a big part of it. We're creating almost like a licensing program portion of it. So people are licensed to use the trademark name. We'll be supporting them with class formats if they want. We will have a membership directory so people can be listed there for people to find them, because I get asked all the time. I know Natalie does too. I don't live in your area. Who can I see? Mm-hmm. And we, of course, we are referring on to pelvic floor PTs as well, but it takes a long time to get in to see a pelvic floor PT. And a lot of the PTs we view them anyway, like they're experts in the manual therapy and the hands-on assessment and treatment. The movement piece can be done with people on their own or potentially with somebody to support them, seeing a personal trainer or what have you. So we will have a directory of people, and hopefully it'll be international around the world.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, I highly encourage all personal trainers, regardless of what type of environment you work in, exercise physiology. Let's put it this way. If you work with women, please take this course. I was at a different gym. I have 2 gyms that I go to, and the gym is kind of a dangerous place for me because I can look around and I want to fix so many things. I want to say so many things, but I don't. I hold myself back. But I was doing my own workout, and there was this young personal trainer working with a woman, and she wanted her to get down on the floor and do dead bugs, and she has her just talking up a storm. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But in that situation, I am like, oh my goodness, there's so much that you're missing and could make this woman so much better. Yeah. And you're just, talking her off. There's a time to talk and there's a time to coach. And it's just really this piece of information. It would help them so much.
1,000%. And really when you have taken the course, you come away, and as I have thought for many years now, why is this not taught in our original certification to become a personal trainer, or even a kinesiology, or like it's a foundational group of muscles, and we talk about core exercise and core fitness all day long when we are in fitness, and the pelvic floor is the foundation of that core, and it is not in any certification where it absolutely should be. So some people will say, well, I'm already certified. I don't need it. I've taken all these other things. I'm like, why would I take this course? And when people come away, they think, I really should have learned that when I became a personal trainer. Like, it changes everything, and in a good way. It doesn't mean that you have to reformulate everything that you're doing, but it gives you the missing link for so many things, of the chronic back pain, the people who are going to the bathroom just before they see you, the ones who go partway through your session, the ones who are avoiding certain exercises from heaviness, or they're afraid of doing a certain movement. It tells you why, it gives you the reasons and the understanding of what's going on, and also then within your scope, how you can help that person. And you can also charge more money if you right? Like, you become a specialist in this area, and you will be very sought out because you have now an additional layer of really, really important knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been a PT now for 18 years, and I can tell you, in PT school, we did not get anything about the pelvic floor. Nothing. And it's a newer niche, if you want to call it. It's more and more research, which is so great. So even for myself, I've done some great courses and stuff along the way. But I mean, this just sounds fantastic of how you're pulling it so much into day-to-day function.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Dorothy, didn't you, you had gone to, well, because you have a prolapse, and you were just told straight up, just don't lift, right? From your doctor?
Yeah, 100%. And I searched for, well, first my just general gynecologist was like, why don't you just get a hysterectomy? Like, it's no big deal, not at all. Like, and I'm like, okay, but there has to be some, negative consequences from a hysterectomy. She goes, no, absolutely not. There's nothing. So as I'm leaving the office, quick Google search, then I'm mortified when I see the list of what could happen if you get a hysterectomy. So then I found a urogynecologist, actually many urogynecologists. I'm someone who wants to find like the best of the best to get the best information so I can make an informed decision. So I found the best of the best in my area, a few in Boston, one in Hartford, Connecticut, and they all told me the same thing, all three of them. Don't lift ever. Don't lift anything heavy. They never talked about diet. They never talked about, other exercise. They didn't even talk about pelvic floor PT at all. And I finally figured out the pelvic floor PT part, did a little bit, and then actually was scheduled for a hysterectomy. And then Lori told me to look you up, Kim. And I became a Buff Muff member. And then I realized you had courses on prolapses and things you need to know before you get a hysterectomy. And I called Lori, and my surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks from that day. And I called Lori and I said, Lori, I'm not ready. Kim is telling me I'm not ready. Like, what I'm learning from Kim, I am not ready for this surgery at all. Like, I need to do a year of, or whatever, 6 months or a year of like strengthening. I need all these things. And I'm like, I'm canceling. And I canceled my hysterectomy. My surgeon was not happy at all. And thank God I did, because, at the end of the day, we just need the information. And even going to, I know I've digressed from what we were talking about, but even with going to the best of the best, I got 5% of what I needed to know. So I just want to take this moment to say thank you for having your course and for having that platform where even from where I live in Western Massachusetts, where I don't have a lot of great care, I can pop online or onto my little app and do my strengthening exercises and get all the information that I need to make this informed decision.
Yeah.
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 Really.
And honestly, it's really frustrating. And there is no shame if you have had a hysterectomy. There is no shame if you choose or need a hysterectomy. It can be life-saving. It can be quality of life-saving. It can absolutely change people's lives in a very positive way. However, it can also do the opposite, and nobody is told the pelvic health implications, that it can increase your risk of incontinence and other types of prolapse. People hear the term prolapse, they think it's only something that happens to the elderly population, and they only think that it can happen to the uterus. They don't realize that it could be the intestines, it could be the bladder, it could be the rectum, and a posterior compartment, a rectocele, is the most common type of prolapse after a hysterectomy. Doesn't mean you're for sure going to get it, but your risk is increased, especially if the reason you had the hysterectomy was because of a prolapse. And nobody is told that. They aren't told the hormonal changes. They aren't told about the postural adaptations. There's a collapse that can happen within the body once the uterus has been removed. And so when we're so big on posture and how we are going to age powerfully and our balance and all that, that can be disrupted by the change in the landscape, and nobody is given that information. So if we choose or need to have a hysterectomy or any type of pelvic surgery, pelvic PT needs to be an essential component to that. We need to train, just like we train for childbirth, just like we train for a marathon. We are going to train for that period of inactivity that we will be in post-surgery. We have to build up our muscle. We have to train the pelvic floor so it's in the best state possible, so we have good blood flow circulation. And guess what? If you do that, sometimes people cancel their surgeries, right? That happens all the time in the program. And the other thing is that I hear all the time is people have a bladder prolapse or a rectocele, And then they go see the doctor and they are offered a hysterectomy when the uterus is totally fine and not symptomatic. And I'm like, just because they don't need it for childbirth anymore doesn't mean that it is not playing a very valuable role within the pelvis. So it is the majority of reasons for hysterectomy: heavy bleeding, fibroids, and prolapse. Those are the top 3 reasons, which are considered benign conditions. So you could argue quality of life, but they are not life-threatening. Cancer, that's a whole other thing that needs to happen. And I completely respect that and understand that. But let's prepare the women ahead of time, train for the surgery, optimize their recovery. And now going forward, another component I say to surgery is, I argue your need for pelvic floor PT and pelvic floor exercise is even greater post-surgery. And a lot of people are told, you don't need to do pelvic floor exercise anymore because I fixed the problem. And we now have scar tissue. We often have a change to the landscape. We need to retrain the system like we do the other times. So I get on, as you can tell, a very big soapbox when it comes to surgery.
As you should.
Yes, as you should. As you should. And
Yeah.
do you think, Kim, that it's just lack of education in these different areas of medicine? So, the OBs are not pushing off to pelvic floor PT because they just don't know about it. They're not understanding, because again, they're trained surgeons, right?
Yep.
And that's one thing. Being a PT, I would always be like, hold off on any surgery until you've done the work, and you're still going to need to strengthen pre and post.
Yep.
And so is that what you're finding? Is it just lack of education in these?
I think there's a lack of education. I think there's a lack of understanding of what PTs do. I think there's a lack of respect for what they do because they're not a medical doctor. Medical doctors are incredibly valuable when we need surgery, when we need pharmaceuticals. That is their training, and we are incredibly fortunate to have them. So often what we are dealing with pelvic floor dysfunction is posture, breath, constipation, dehydration, poor lifting strategy. Like, there are so many things that need to be addressed prior. And once they are all addressed, they still might need surgery. And that's fine. But what I see is pelvic floor PTs are doing the work, and then they get to a point and say, you know what, we need to refer on to surgery. The reverse is not happening, very rarely. Not enough. I see some progressive surgeons who now have PTs in their clinic and it's part of their team. And I just that should be a no-brainer for all of them going. Anybody working within the pelvis, there should be a very symbiotic relationship there. But I just don't see that. And sort of to Natalie's point with the siloed aspect of the sick care system, people become an expert in what they know. And if I have the solution to that problem and it is a surgery, so that's what I'm going to offer. And that's no fault of theirs. That's what they are trained in. They aren't, just like they're not provided menopause education. They're not provided education about really in-depth function and fitness and movement. That's just not their training. But I just hope that at some point we can get away from the doctor knows best, and all of us can collaborate and understand and respect one another's profession and say, why don't you give that a try? How about that? Rather than just say, no, this is what you need. It's the only thing that's going to fix it. All the exercise in the world is going to do nothing. That might be true, but why don't we try anyway? Because you never know.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. No, I'm on the same soapbox as you, Kim. So I love it. I love it. Nat?
I was just going to say, I've had a client tell me that her provider literally said the words, the uterus is a disposable organ.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
And that just struck me. I think that's the perspective of a lot of surgeons and urogyns. If they are thinking you're done having babies, you're post-menopause, there's no use for this organ, it's an appendix, essentially.
Yeah.
And that is so misguided and false information to give to clients. And thankfully she is, educated and informed and was like, that doesn't sound right, and went and researched more because she was like, I want to keep my uterus. There's nothing wrong with it. And she didn't have any symptoms. It was just do you want a hysterectomy kind of conversation.
Wow.
So that is what we're up against, which is just wild, 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 wild.
That makes me so sad.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me so sad that it's just we're just that disposable.
Yeah.
Was it a female practitioner that she went to?
I don't remember. I want to say yes, but I don't remember. I can't.
I mean,
give
it's
you an
never
accurate-
okay, but being a woman, you would think that you would have some kind of relationship with your body that would have you see a different side of things.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I was working with a craniosacral therapist who shared that when she was doing her cadaver lab in her studies, it was a female cadaver. And the person who was running it, when they got to pelvic floor and the girly parts, they noticed that there was a uterus there. And the person that was running it said, wow, you all are so lucky. It's so rare. It's so incredibly rare to get a cadaver with a uterus because everybody was getting hysterectomies.
Yeah.
That is so
I've
sad.
heard that too many
Have
times
you?
from people. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
It's
gosh. Well, we
crazy.
need to change that narrative starting today and sharing this podcast. So if anybody wants to get in touch with your guys' programs, how do they go about that? And so I could list it to you in the show notes.
Go ahead, Nat.
I was going to say vaginacoach.com or the Buff Muff Method. If you are a person who's not a trainer or body worker or movement professional, then do Kim's Buff Muff Method program. If you are a practitioner, do our Buff Muff practitioner certification. And
And then you'll get access to the Buff Muff after that. But
Yes.
yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent.
And I just want to say again, I cannot believe how much information you have on that website. And it is so incredibly affordable. I signed up for one thing. And then I was like, oh my gosh, for just a few dollars more, I get this whole course and then this other whole course. And I love that you also have, do you still do the weekly, like where people can call in and chat with you? Yes, of course. I haven't done that yet, but you are accessible in so many ways for people at an affordable cost. And it's just, I know you're changing so many lives by doing that. So thank you. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do. You won't be disappointed.
Well, we
Yeah,
need to
thank
make
you.
this pelvic floor shift and knowledge a grassroots movement like we're trying to do with menopause.
Yeah,
Right. Because, like in the menopause world, like they say, by the time all these doctors and practitioners are trained, it could be years and years and years. And
Yeah,
so we need
yeah.
to take this grassroots movement too with the pelvic floor education.
Yeah. The good
Yeah.
thing is, sorry, just one thing. The good thing is with the menopause movement, it has created more awareness of the pelvic floor because of the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. So, so that's been very, very helpful. And I also want to highlight, you can find Natalie. Natalie has a website too.
That's right, Nat.
Yeah, trainernatalie.com. It's in the works. It's not so robust right now, but
But she shares a lot of stuff on Instagram that's really, really powerful as well too.
Yes,
so.
she does. Yes, she does.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I would love for each of you to give us your 2 or 3 like most important pelvic floor tips. I know there's many out there, but what would be the top 2 or 3 that you would immediately share with somebody and would want somebody to know?
Kim,
Well,
you
I know
go
what
first.
Natalie's is going to be.
I know.
I think I could take that guess too, but
Mine is always see a pelvic floor physical therapist once a year, even if you have no symptoms, but especially if you do. Drink 2 to 3 liters of water every single day. That will help with your urgency, your frequency, even though it sounds like it's going to be counterintuitive. It's also going to help you with number 3, which is number 2, poop. You have to poop really well. A Bristol stool chart, number 4, poop every single day. Use a squatty potty. If you aren't pooping well, your pelvic floor is not going to be very happy, nor is the rest of your body. So PT, hydration, poop, those always have to happen. Well, I shouldn't say PT has to happen first before somebody starts pelvic floor muscle training, but ideally those three things need to be a priority.
I love it. Well, and you should know the Bristol poop chart I have next to my kids' toilet, and they have their
Nice.
squatty potty. Yep, in their bathroom. Yes,
That's
got to
awesome.
start them young, Kim.
Yes, 1,000%. Love it.
Yes, Nat, what are your top 2 or 3?
Mine actually goes with that. Learn about your pelvic floor before you have a problem, if you are in that category. So before having a baby, before going through perimenopause, all of that. Change your shoes. I know all of you guys were expecting that, but honestly, if you change your shoes, it will change your life.
Yeah.
And Kim said the pelvic floor is the most important muscle group in the entire world. I agree, but also add the feet because that's the first foundation that hits the ground. and then your pelvic floor is next above that. And then I also like to say it's never too late, because a lot of times we think that like, oh, I'm already fearful of getting up off the ground. I'm already leaking. Doctors have told me there's nothing else I can do, but there's always something you can do. So be encouraged that it's never too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing too, right? With the hormonal changes that go into perimenopause, you may never have leaked and thought you had any pelvic floor issues. And now you're having these changes in estrogen and progesterone that's opening up, this area of weakness, which could be corrected.
And same with pregnancy too. Like pregnancy highlights maybe dysfunction that was already there that you were compensating for. And pregnancy reveals a lot of things with the added pressure and just hormonal changes and everything. As I'm speaking from experience right now, I'm happy to say my pelvic floor is doing awesome.
Well, from the videos that you're posting, Nat, and doing all your lifting with 33 weeks now, you said? Yep. You can go on strong. And that's the other thing too, right? Just because we're pregnant doesn't mean we have to stop moving.
Yeah, please don't.
And lifting.
Please don't. Move
keep
more.
It going. Keep it going. Especially if you feel good. I mean, there will come a point where, even I had twins, Kim. And so there just came a point where I was just to get up out of bed was just so much effort and a fatigue had set in. So there was a point that I did have to stop and still kept with my walking. But I mean, you feel good, keep going, keep doing your normal stuff.
Yeah. There's so much research that supports that.
I know. Well, ladies, I feel like we can continue to talk about this stuff forever. As always, thank you for coming on, sharing all this great information. Everything will be posted in the show notes. And we're going to keep this conversation going and make this a grassroots movement because it's very much needed. And so thank you for being the pioneers in this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, until next time, everyone, we'll see you soon.
The information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is based on the opinions and experience of Lori, Dorothy, and their guests. The content should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or a treatment. Always seek the advice of your healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast.